Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today with From Micro Tracking to Macro Impact, the Circular Supply Chain, a Kawaii Tech explainer on the future of procurement. We're going to dive deep into a massive transformation happening right now in how the world buys, uses, and reuses materials. We'll be zooming all the way in on a single recycled component and then zooming way out to the massive global systems that are driving the circular economy. So if you want to really understand how strategic procurement is reshaping the economy and practically eliminating waste, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it.
You know that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure? Chef Yaldamathalengi hit the nail on the head there, and it perfectly captures the heart of what we're talking about today. Now, what's really fascinating is how this translates directly to modern economics. See, in a traditional supply chain, once a product is used up, it's just trash. Done. But circular supply chains completely flip that script. They look at everyday waste as a highly valuable secondary raw material.
Section 1. Trash into real treasure. The microscale of circularity. Let's start hyper-focused down at the micro level, where shifting away from that outdated, linear, take, make, dispose model completely redefines our entire concept of waste.
Think of a circular supply chain as this beautiful, totally restorative loop. Instead of the old routine where we extract virgin raw materials, build something, and then just toss it into a landfill, this system guarantees that once a product reaches the end of its life, there's literally no physical evidence it ever existed as waste. It's reborn as something entirely new. This reverse logistics setup keeps resources in play at their absolute highest value, which saves money and the planet at the exact same time.
So how on earth do companies actually manage a loop that complex? Well, that brings us to Section 2, Tracking with IoT and Blockchain. Digitizing the loop. To make this trash-to-treasure magic happen on a grand scale, we have to rely on some incredibly smart, tech-driven digital tools. Let's look at how technology bridges that gap.
Imagine literally tracking a product's entire life cycle, step by step digitally. First up, step 1, we pin down the exact origin of the raw materials. Then in step 2, the Internet of Things, or IoT, physically monitors truck emissions, fuel usage, and transport routes in real time. Moving right along to step 3, that IoT tech continues to monitor the product's actual use and maintenance. And finally, step 4, blockchain securely logs and links all that supplier data. This ensures the product's entire history is totally verified, right down to the recycling phase.
It really all boils down to one simple equation. Traceability equals efficiency plus zero waste. Having this kind of absolute digital transparency lets organizations calculate the true environmental impact of their entire network. It optimizes waste collection, slashes carbon footprints, and ensures a totally connected zero-waste journey from the factory straight to your home and then back again.
All right, let's zoom out a bit from the tracking tech. Section 3. Public policy and private opportunity. Zooming out to the macro scale. Let's take a look at the massive global players that enforce and honestly directly benefit from these circular ecosystems.
19%. Just kind of let that number sink in for a second. The public sector accounts for an astonishing 19% of the GDP across OECD countries. That means they possess the ultimate purchasing power. By simply tweaking their procurement requirements to favor sustainable goods, governments and public agencies can single-handedly dictate market trends and basically force entire industries to adapt.
So here's how this dynamic plays out in the real world. On one side, you've got the public sector acting as regulators and policymakers. They're laying down the ground rules and leading by example to protect the environment. On the flip side, the private sector is leaping at these opportunities. When governments set circular standards, private companies innovate these brand new, profitable business models. They move away from quick transactional purchases and instead build long-term, resilient relationships with their suppliers.
Zooming back in just a touch into that private sector brings us to Section 4, multinationals versus small enterprises, the corporate ecosystem. Here we find two very distinct types of players steering the ship, and they operate in completely different ways.
This corporate ecosystem basically splits into two camps. First up, you have the massive multinational corporations with massive budgets. They're the ones financially capable of driving the heavy R&D for new circular technologies. Then we have the SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. They leverage the tech developments created by those multinationals to adapt to market trends. SMEs are highly adaptable, and honestly, they form the true broad foundation of a circular society.
And why are these smaller players the absolute foundation? Get this, SMEs actually make up over 99% of all European enterprises. 99%. Their active participation isn't just nice to have, it is absolutely vital. Put simply, if the SMEs don't go circular, the economy doesn't go circular. But making that jump from a linear model to a circular one is incredibly tough for them. That brings us to Section 5, breaking down SME barriers, the hurdles of the 99%. Let's look at the severe, very distinct barriers these smaller companies are facing every single day.
These SMEs are basically battling a triple threat. First up, financial barriers. Transitioning costs real money, and SMEs face a severe lack of capital and extreme difficulties getting funding from traditional banks. Second are the technical barriers. Remember that awesome IoT and big data tracking we talked about earlier? Well, most SMEs simply lack the in-house expertise and the tech professionals to actually use those digital tools. And third, organizational barriers. There's often this deeply ingrained resistance to change. A stubborn, traditional linear mindset of, we've always done it this way, combined with a lack of internal awareness, makes shifting gears incredibly tough.
And if those internal struggles weren't enough, they are facing some massive external hurdles too. They're often locked at the very bottom of the supply chain, where there's a distinct absence of green suppliers to even source from. They're navigating intensely competitive linear markets with very little coherent government support to help mitigate the risks. And perhaps most critically, they face insufficient consumer awareness.
Which brings this explainer to our final section, the power of your demand. Completing the circuit, we are focusing directly on the end user now. That's right, we're talking about you.
Because here is the absolute truth of this whole ecosystem. There is no circular supply without circular demand. Period. An SME operating with limited capital and super tight margins simply cannot take the financial risk of producing circular goods if consumers aren't actively demanding them and eagerly buying recycled products.
So, how do you power this loop? By demanding high ethical requirements when you shop, by actively accepting and trusting the quality of recycled products, by taking the time to really understand your own environmental footprint. Your awareness and your daily purchasing habits are the ultimate driving forces here. When you refuse to buy linear, disposable goods, you are literally forcing businesses to adopt sustainable trends. You are the one keeping the entire circular supply chain alive.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. You see the mechanics now, right? From the micro-tracking of IoT all the way up to the macro impact of public policy. But the most powerful tool in all of this is sitting right in your pocket. Are you ready to use your purchasing power to reshape the future? Will you demand the change necessary to turn our global waste back into treasure? Thank you so much for joining me, and I really hope this changes the way you look at everything you buy.